It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a milestone in my life where love and joy would fill the air. My husband, James, and I had been married for 5 years. He wasn't the most romantic person, but he always managed to make my birthdays feel special in his own subtle way. This year, however, I sensed something different. In the days leading up to my birthday, James seemed distracted. He was glued to his phone more than usual, his conversations laced with whispers or sudden silences whenever I entered the room. When I asked what he was up to, he dismissed my curiosity with a playful grin and said, "You'll see soon enough." It was enough to make me believe he was planning something grand, and my heart fluttered with anticipation. Our relationship had its ups and downs, as most do. Lately, though, there had been an unspoken distance between us. It wasn't something I could put my finger on, just a feeling, a subtle shift in the way he looked at me or the pauses in our conversations. Still, I chalked it up to the stress of work and the routines of married life. Everyone goes through rough patches, right? The morning of my birthday arrived with warm sunlight streaming through the curtains. James greeted me with a kiss on the forehead and whispered, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Today is all about you." He insisted I spend the day relaxing while he took care of the preparations for what he promised would be a memorable evening. His enthusiasm felt genuine, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope, a reminder of the man I fell in love with. Throughout the day, my phone buzzed with messages from friends and family, each hinting at a big surprise James had been planning. My best friend Sarah called to say, "You're going to love what he's done. He's really pulled out all the stops this time." Her excitement was infectious, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude for James. Maybe the distance I'd been feeling was all in my head. As the hours passed, I found myself reminiscing about our life together. Our wedding day, the lazy Sunday mornings spent in each other's arms, the way he used to surprise me with little gestures of affection. Those memories reminded me why I chose him and filled me with a sense of renewed hope for our future. By the time the evening rolled around, my curiosity had reached its peak. James returned home with an enigmatic smile and told me to get dressed. "Wear something nice," he added, his tone playful yet serious. As I sifted through my wardrobe, I couldn't help but imagine what he had in store. A romantic dinner, perhaps? A quiet night with just the two of us. Whatever it was, I was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. What I didn't know was that this birthday would be unlike any I'd ever had. It would be unforgettable, but not in the way I had hoped. The evening unfolded with a sense of magic and anticipation. James guided me outside to find a sleek black car waiting for us. He opened the door with a flourish, his smile radiant as he urged me inside. My heart raced as I wondered what he had planned. The car glided through the city, and every turn deepened my curiosity. Finally, we pulled up to an elegant venue, its exterior glowing with soft lights. As we stepped inside, I was greeted by the warm faces of friends and family, all cheering in unison. "Happy birthday!" The room was beautifully decorated, a harmonious blend of my favorite colors and themes. There were tables lined with fresh flowers, fairy lights draped from the ceiling, and a cake that looked too perfect to cut. My eyes brimmed with tears of gratitude as I realized the effort James had put into making the day special. James took my hand and led me to the center of the room. He raised a glass and began a heartfelt toast. He spoke about our journey together, his voice steady yet laced with emotion. "To my incredible wife, the light of my life," he said, his gaze locked on mine. "Every day with you is a gift, and I wanted to make this day as extraordinary as you are." His words melted my heart, and I felt a deep sense of love and pride. As the evening progressed, I mingled with guests, soaking in their warmth and well wishes. Laughter filled the air, and for a while, it felt like a perfect celebration. Yet, amid the joy, I started noticing little things. James seemed unusually attentive to one guest, Lily, a colleague of his I'd met once or twice. She was strikingly beautiful, with a confident demeanor that made her stand out. At first, I dismissed it as nothing more than friendly camaraderie. But as the night wore on, Their interactions caught my attention. A shared laugh here, a lingering glance there. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make me uneasy. There was a moment when I saw them standing in the corner, their heads close as they whispered something to each other. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to smile and continue chatting with the other guests. The final surprise of the evening was unveiled with much fanfare. James presented me with an envelope containing tickets for a luxurious vacation, a dream trip for just the two of us. The room erupted in applause, and I felt a mix of emotions. While the gesture was undeniably grand, my earlier unease lingered. As the night came to an end, James and I thanked everyone for coming. His arm was wrapped around me, his demeanor affectionate and attentive. And yet, a nagging thought remained in the back of my mind. The party had been everything I could have wished for, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. I convinced myself it was paranoia, a trick my mind was playing on me. After all, James had gone to such great lengths to make this day perfect, or so I believed. The next morning, as I sat alone with my thoughts, the previous night's events played over in my mind. It had been an incredible celebration, yet certain moments stood out, moments I couldn't ignore. James and Lily's interactions replayed in my memory, and the unease I had dismissed the night before began to gnaw at me. I told myself it was nothing, but the pit in my stomach wouldn't go away. Later that day, while James was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wouldn't normally check it, but something compelled me to glance at the screen. The message was from Lily. My heart sank as I read her words. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about it." My hands trembled as I unlocked his phone, a mixture of anger and fear coursing through me. The messages told a story I wasn't ready to face. There were months of exchanges between them, inside jokes, late-night confessions, and plans to meet up. It was clear this wasn't just a work friendship. It was something far deeper, something I hadn't seen coming. When James stepped out of the shower, I confronted him immediately. I held up his phone, my voice shaking as I demanded answers. At first, he tried to deny it, claiming the messages were innocent and that I was overreacting. But the evidence was undeniable, and under the weight of my persistence, his defenses crumbled. He admitted to having an emotional affair with Lily, insisting it hadn't gone beyond that. "It was just texting," he pleaded, his voice filled with regret. "I never crossed the line physically. I swear." His words did little to calm the storm inside me. Emotional or physical, the betrayal was still a betrayal. I felt a surge of anger and pain like nothing I'd ever experienced. "How could you do this?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "On my birthday, James. With everyone there celebrating us. Was any of it real?" He tried to reach out to me, but I stepped back, tears streaming down my face. The room seemed to close in on me as I grappled with the reality of what had happened. The man I had loved and trusted had shared parts of himself with someone else. Parts that were meant to be ours alone. It wasn't just the messages or the lies. It was the intimacy he had given to her, the vulnerability he had taken away from us. James begged for forgiveness, promising to cut all ties with Lily and do whatever it took to fix our marriage. But his words felt hollow in the moment, overshadowed by the weight of his actions. I didn't know if I could believe him, let alone forgive him. I told him I needed space to think, to process everything. As I packed an overnight bag and walked out the door, I couldn't shake the image of James standing there, remorse etched across his face. The man who had once been my safe haven was now the source of my deepest hurt, and I had no idea if we could ever come back from it. In the days that followed, I found myself drifting between heartbreak and anger. Every memory of James felt tainted, every promise he'd made hollow. I spent the first few nights at Sarah's, confiding in her as I tried to make sense of what had happened. She listened without judgment, offering me the comfort I desperately needed. Therapy became my sanctuary. I needed answers not just about James but about myself. Why hadn't I seen the signs earlier? Had I been too trusting, too complacent? My therapist helped me understand that the blame wasn't mine to bear. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and James had been the one to break it. Meanwhile, James was relentless in his attempts to make amends. He texted and called daily, sending long messages about how much he regretted his actions. He promised he was willing to do whatever it took to earn my trust back. He even started therapy on his own, hoping it would show his commitment to change. I couldn't ignore the effort he was making, but I wasn't ready to let him back in. The wounds were too fresh, the betrayal too raw. I needed to rebuild myself before I could even consider rebuilding us. I threw myself into work and hobbies I had long neglected. Painting, yoga, long walks by the beach. Anything to reclaim a sense of who I was outside of our marriage. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I began to feel stronger. I was no longer consumed by thoughts of James and Lily, no longer questioning every moment of our past. Instead, I was focusing on my future, one that didn't revolve around anyone else's actions or decisions. James, however, wasn't giving up. He continued to reach out, but this time his approach was different. He wasn't pressuring me for forgiveness or demanding we fix things immediately. Instead, he was patient, giving me the space I needed while showing me through his actions that he was serious about change. Eventually, I agreed to meet him. Sitting across from him at the cafe, I saw a man who looked as broken as I had felt in those first few days. He didn't try to justify what he had done. He simply apologized. "I can't undo the hurt I caused," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." I listened, my heart torn between love and self-preservation. Forgiveness wasn't something I could give lightly, and I told him as much. If we were to move forward, it would be on my terms, and it would take time, perhaps more than he was prepared for. In the end, I realized that healing wasn't about saving the marriage or walking away from it. It was about finding peace within myself. Whether James and I would find our way back to each other remained uncertain, but for the first time I felt okay with that. What mattered most was that I had found my strength again, and no one could take that away from me.